The new Trump accounts might be the single biggest opportunity for building generational wealth that we've seen in the last 50 years. No, I'm not kidding. And I'm going to actually show you a hack that nobody else seems to be talking about that could give your kids tax-free millions of dollars by the time they retire with this one account alone. Now, the Trump account is a new savings account that Trump came out with in the One Big Beautiful Bill that was passed in 2025. They're not really available until 2026. And according to the White House, you can't really start funding them until after July 4th of 2026. But once these accounts are available, you can start putting money into them. Now, this is the document straight from whitehouse.gov, and it details the Trump accounts. But basically, parents can contribute basically $5,000 a year into these accounts. And not just parents, your employers can contribute, family, friends. There's no requirements there. The other cool thing is there's no work requirement, meaning like your kid can get funded this account without having earned income, which is an IRA or Roth IRA requirements. They have to have earned income to contribute. You don't have to do that. But what's really cool is when you're contributing to these, the accounts must be invested in stock market funds or exchange traded funds, ETFs, mirroring the S&P 500 or another American stock index, right? So this may include something like QQQ or Vanguard's VTI Total Stock Market Fund or Vanguard's VOO, which does mirror the S&P 500. So not a bad thing. And you'll have low fee index funds, which is what I preach all the time, to be invested in. But what's really interesting is this right here. And I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about this advantage. It says, after age 18, the account is generally treated as a traditional IRA. Now, traditional IRAs are retirement accounts, and obviously the funds grow tax-free, but you can't really touch it till age 59 and a half. Here's what I want to get to on this, because this is what I think a lot of people are missing. You can get tax-free growth in the account, right? You put $5,000 a year, you're not getting a tax deduction now, but it'll grow tax-free for 17 years, right? So say your kid is born next year, you start putting money into it, and then it grows tax-free for 17 years. But at age 18, if it converts to a traditional IRA and is treated just like a traditional IRA, there's some really cool things you could do that could set them up for the future. So I want to break it down, show you exactly what I would do, and show you the way that you can put this into place so you can save the money on taxes, grow it tax-free, and eventually they'll have millions of dollars by the time you retire. And I'll show you the actual numbers. We'll run actual scenarios in details. Now, before we get into the numbers of how you could turn this $5,000 a year investment into nearly $7 million for your child, I want to share with you a free tool that allows you to track your investments. It's called Empower Personal Dashboard, and they're the sponsor for today's video. Now, I've been using Empower Personal Dashboard for over a decade to track my investments, and they've got some really cool tools built in, like you can track your investments by sector, by investment, by asset allocation, and you can compare it to other investments benchmarks in the industry. But there's also some other really cool built-in tools like their retirement planner. This allows you to connect your accounts, and then you'll actually see a projection of how your investments will grow and when you can retire. It'll take into account how much you're investing per year and even Social Security estimated income, as well as taxes. So you can plan your retirement and see how different scenarios work. In fact, you can compare multiple scenarios side by side. So Empower is my favorite free investment tracking tool. You can sign up below using the link roadmapmoney.com/use Empower. Again, I'll drop the link below. But if you're going to be growing investments for generational wealth, definitely download and use Empower to track how you're doing along the way. All right, so let's talk about how to turn the initial $5,000 per year investment into nearly $7 million in tax-free money. So if you start contributing when your kid is born, let's say they're born in 2026, you can start putting money in. Now, the government's going to give you $1,000 if your kid is born between 2025 and 2028. That's part of this One Big Beautiful Bill. But that $1,000 is just sort of like seed funding. Hey, here you go. Let's get the account started. But the real massive impact is going to be the $5,000 a year contributions from you as a parent and or grandparents or whoever wants to help contribute to these accounts. $5,000 a year for 17 years is going to be $90,000 contributed. But the money in there has to be invested in something like a stock market index fund, like the S&P 500, for example. If we take a conservative average return estimate of 8% per year, again, it typically averages 10% or more. But let's say if they just get 8% per year for those 17 years, that would turn the $90,000 into $180,000. So your $5,000 a year investment has now turned into $180,000 by the time your kid graduates high school, which is an incredible start. Now, here's where it gets exciting. Those funds convert to a traditional IRA. And that's amazing, but those traditional IRAs have some restrictions. One, you can't pull it out to your age 59 and a half without jumping through some hoops. And so, well, that's a good thing. Let the money grow tax free. Once the traditional IRA withdrawals start at age 59 and a half, they're taxed at ordinary income rates. So if this account balloons in a good way, now you might have high tax bills in retirement. The other thing is they also have required minimum distributions, meaning by the time you hit, I think it's up to age 75 now, depending on your age. But if your kids have to, let's say at age 75, they start pulling out these required minimum distributions, that could be another tax hit. So you're getting kind of a double whammy on the front end and the back end of these things. And they're just not that flexible. You can't really touch the funds. But if you immediately start converting those funds from traditional IRA to Roth IRA, now you have a ton more flexibility. And hear me out. Yes, you do have to pay some taxes when the money is converted. But if your kid is 18 years old, what are they doing? They might have a starter job making very little money, or they might be going to college. And if they're going to college with no income, you could fill up those lower tax brackets with Roth IRA conversions and pay as little tax as possible now. And then now that money is going to grow for the next 40 plus years tax free and have a ton less restrictions on it. Here's why I like the Roth IRA. Number one is once you convert the funds from traditional to Roth IRA, after waiting for 5 years, there is a 5-year cooling off period. Basically, it's got to sit in there for 5 years. You can now access those funds. The principal investment is basically that conversion. So let's say you convert 50 grand the first year, wait 5 years, that 50 grand is now like a backup emergency fund. You can use those funds for anything, right? Because now you've already paid the tax on them. They're sitting in a post-tax Roth account, and you can use it for anything with no taxes, no penalties. Now, all of a sudden, you have access to these funds. The other cool thing is it does grow tax-free, but by the time your kid wants to retire and they start pulling money out, it's tax-free. There's no more taxes. You've already paid the initial taxes on them. And so if it grows to millions and millions of dollars, that is all tax-free money in the future, all tax-free. And no required minimum distributions, meaning you don't have to withdraw these funds after you hit a certain age. There's no requirements. You can leave it as long as you want. And guess what? If you leave it to your heirs, they don't have to empty that account within 10 years. There's no requirement for them to empty the account, right? The government got their money way back here, and now it's just tax-free forever. So I love Roth IRA accounts. Now, you might be thinking, okay, cool, but I got to pay taxes on those conversions, right? Here's how it could work. So if your kid, let's say, 17 years from now, and we'll say a mild 2.5% inflation in the tax brackets. Let's say they're single, they have no income. They could have up to probably about $63,000 to $65,000 at 12% tax rates. So if you convert up to that $60,000 to $65,000 that first year when they turn 18, you'll only have to pay maybe $6,000, $7,000 in taxes on that amount. Now, assuming you have that $180,000 to convert at age 18, 19, and 20, say where they're in college and have no income, you convert $180,000. You pay $6,000 to $7,000 a year, maybe a total $20,000 tax bill. And again, as you as the parent who has been funding this account, now you just fund a little bit more by paying that tax bill for them, right? So instead of putting 5 to 6 grand in the account, you now pay 5 to 6 grand of their tax bill. Again, this is if you want to set up generational wealth for your kids. But once that $20,000 paid, you now have $180,000 in a Roth IRA, and it is now tax-free forever. Here's where it gets crazy. So at 18 years old, they have $180,000. You convert that over the next 3 years and you let it grow. Even at an 8% rate, which typically it grows at 10% or more if you're invested in something like an S&P 500 index fund. But at an 8% rate, by age 30, they'll have $450,000. By age 40, they'll have nearly $1 million tax-free dollars in their Roth IRA, even if they never put another cent in this thing. But check it out. By age 50, they'll have over $2 million in this one Roth IRA. And if they leave it for another 15 years and they retire at age 65, they'll have $6.7 million in a tax-free Roth IRA just from this one Trump account. So I ran a few numbers of what this actually means because if you don't do the Roth conversion at that time and pay $20,000, which might feel like a lot, but here's how the effect is if you keep it in a traditional IRA account. So if you let those grow, let's say both accounts, traditional and Roth, grow to 6.7, right? So you got one person that didn't convert. They're like, nah, it's a hassle. I'm going to let that grow to $6.7 million. I'm going to start pulling it at age 65. The one person that did let it convert and paid that $20,000 tax bill over 3 years also let it grow to about 6.7 million. Now, here's what happens in retirement. Again, let's just sort of assume a 2% growth in the tax brackets. And so we'll widen those out over time. But let's look at what the tax bill could be on a 5%, just a 5% withdrawal rate. Now, 5% of 6.7 million is $335,000. Now, that's unfathomable. It seems really like a lot, but we're talking 40 years from now. So that bill is going to be $67,000 for the person that left it in a traditional IRA, but the Roth IRA, there's a $0 tax bill. $67,000 tax bill that first year alone. So 1 year, you're now paying triple what this Roth IRA person paid back here. Now you might say, oh, inflation. Okay, cool. Let's say that's still the equivalent of 20,000 for that first year withdrawal because you're getting ordinary tax rates. Let's say you have a 25-year retirement. At that point, you might pay over $1.5 to $2 million in taxes in the traditional IRA accounts in retirement. Well, Roth IRA conversion person only paid a one-time $20,000 bill during those couple years of converting. That's it. $20,000 over 3 years of conversions versus $2 million in taxes at ordinary income tax rates. That is mind-blowing difference, and nobody is talking about how this could literally save your kids $2 million in taxes if you just do that one strategy right at the end, right? At age 18, when their income is as low as possible, take advantage of those low tax rates, convert the money, and save your kid $2 million in future taxes and all of the flexibility of the Roth IRA account at the same time. It's a no-brainer, and I think that this could be a brilliant strategy for somebody that wants to plan long-term wealth for their kids and future generations. All right, so here's the step-by-step strategy to implement this and make your kids tax-free bajillionaires by the time they want to retire with this one single Trump account. Step one is to fund the account. So by the time the accounts are available to be funded is going to be July of 2026. Now, your kid might not be born that year, but maybe even if your kid is 5 or 6 or 10, it doesn't even matter. You can open the account for them if they're under 18 and start funding it, right? Step two is to actually max fund these accounts. Put the $5,000 a year into them. If you have multiple kids, that might feel like a lot, but you max fund these instead of something like a college account that has a lot of restrictions or a custodial account that doesn't have tax advantages. Fund this account instead. Step three is you need to plan for that Roth conversion. So make sure you're going to set aside a little bit of money for the tax bill when it is converted at Roth at age 18. Now, make sure this lines up with a low income year for your kid. If your kid happens to have a ton of income, then yeah, go ahead and just let them have a ton of income and pay the bill. But if they don't, make sure you plan for the Roth conversion to set the money aside. Now, when you do those Roth conversions, here's what's really cool because it's your kid's account. They're going to do the conversion. You can gift them the tax bill. And again, if the gift tax exclusion is, I think, something like $19,000 these days. So if you're only giving them $6,000 or $7,000, you don't even have to file anything with the IRS. You just give them the money as a gift. They pay the tax bill. Do that 3 years in a row to keep them in the 12% tax bracket or below, and then let that money be fully converted to Roth IRAs. The tax bill is now paid, and now just leave it alone, right? Let it grow for the next 40 plus years. And now your kid could have $6.7 million in tax-free money by the time they want to retire. Now, I'll say there's one caveat to this entire thing. If your kid starts having earned income, it is probably a little more valuable and less locked down to have them start funding their own Roth IRA. But guess what? They fund the Roth IRA, you fund the Trump account. Now they're doubling up, right? So if you don't want to help them fund the Roth IRA, if they're going to be funding another one with their earned income, and then you come alongside and continue to fund that Trump account, now they have both accounts growing, right? This is truly how generational wealth is built. Proper tax planning, long-term foresight, and compound interest. And this account allows you to do all three. So I hope that was helpful. This is truly a massive tax hack that could save millions of dollars and could get your kids generational wealth that could be passed on tax free for generations. I would love to hear from you. Do you think this is actually doable? Do you think this is going to work? Or do you think this is just some kind of loophole that's going to get closed up? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you have a friend or family member, somebody that has kids and they haven't considered using the Trump account to grow generational wealth or to build wealth for their kids, send them this video, share this video with them so they know that there's a strategy that can actually get them tax-free millions of dollars simply by funding this one account alone. All right, as always, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.